Imagine your business not just surviving, but thriving. Your wealth locked in, your opportunities exploding, and your family's future built on a
We are
legacy
live.
that
Welcome to
never
this
fades.
episode of Wealthy Wednesday.
I'm
I guess
Leah
my
Garcia,
intro doesn't
a
want to
financial
play today, but
strategist
that's
and
okay.
insurance
I can
professional.
introduce myself.
I help
Welcome to
entrepreneurs
Wealthy
and high-growth
Wednesday, where we
enterprises
talk about
protect,
all things
distribute,
wealth here. We
and
talk
transfer
about
their
wealth.
wealth through my proven system, the Wall of Wealth. I unite your experts into one cohesive strategy, because the most expensive
Happy
line
Wealthy
on your
Wednesday,
balance sheet
champions.
isn't
My
debt
intro
or taxes.
isn't playing today, but that's
It's
okay. I
conflicting
can
advice.
introduce myself. Happy
Ready to
Wealthy
align
Wednesday.
every
Come on
dollar
in. We're
with your
gonna have a
mission
lot of
and
fun.
turn today's success into tomorrow's divine promise. Wealth today, dynasty tomorrow.
All right, all right. Well, you know what? Technology is going to be technology. This is going to be an incredible conversation. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad to see you. We talk about all things wealth on Wealthy Wednesday. I call it the 7Fs. We talk about wealth in our faith, our family, our finances, our fitness, our fun, and philanthropic. Yes, it is an F word in the world of Leah. It is an F word, and food, because I believe that having good quality food is something we absolutely should have. Good nutrition is the foundation. It is plain. It's plain. It's not plain. I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you see me, Miss Rosie? She'll let me know. I'm actually going to start having her be one of my moderators because she's always got my back. I appreciate you so much, my love. You know what? It doesn't matter. None of that matters. We've got technology, and technology sometimes is going to be what it is. Today's conversation is going to be one that you're going to want to replay. You're going to want to go back. You're going to want to connect with this speaker. She brings so much value. And the first time I heard her speak, she was talking about the vagus nerve with our very one and only Miss Queen Leslie Flowers. And I love the way that she broke it down, and it really inspired me to focus and learn more about the vagus nerve. Her work is very inspirational. I love that she moves within this space that we have, this social media space. She brings a ton of value. She's a lot of fun. She brings a lot of energy. And she's always got like a little surprise thing, I think, for me. She always brings some kind of little surprise, something she talks about that I hadn't even thought about. So this conversation we're going to have is the energetics of wealth. Let me ask you, do you think that wealth has an energy? What do you think? By the end of this conversation, whether you think it does or doesn't, it's going to really help you to expand and explore what you think and what you believe about money. I talk about money every single day and twice on Sunday. That's all I talk about. Sometimes it seems like, and I love it. People come to me for their help with their wealth. But then they also, as I'm out in the world, things just are going to gravitate towards that. And I absolutely love it. And I will tell you what I've learned and what I've seen. There is an energetic to wealth. I talk to people who you may not think have a lot of wealth, but they are vibrating at a certain level. I don't even know how to explain it. I can't really articulate it. At the same time, I meet a lot of people who are those posers. Okay, let's just call them the posers, who want to give the illusion that they have a lot of wealth, and those also resonate. So without further ado, we're going to do a deep dive. I want to bring up our incredible guest speaker, Miss Catherine Chadwick. Welcome to Wealthy Wednesday. Thank you so much, my love. I appreciate your time. So for anyone who's been living under a rock and doesn't know you, share a little bit about your work, because you've done a lot of different things. Share a little bit about your work.
Well, thank you, Leah. I'm just delighted to be here with you, because I'm looking forward to this conversation with you as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to have it here on your show of Wealthy Wednesday. Thank you. What's interesting is the energetics of wealth it's really the study of the internal conditions, right? Because that dictates everything. And that also dictates our relationship with money. And how I landed on studying the nervous system and the body-mind energy connection was in my mid-20s. I was the charge nurse of a small intensive care unit. And by the time I was 23 years old, and by the time I was 25, my lumbar spine had crumbled. And that was I would put that under the heading of a really rude awakening. So it was very much about, okay, I've always been very athletic, very strong, in great shape. What's going on with this? And I wasn't the only nurse in a back brace. And my prescription after a beautiful repair was to wear this hip to breast back brace for a year and walk at least 1 mile a day for a year, which I did. And I went to the beach every day. I was 30 pounds lighter than you see me now, this little walking skeleton in a back brace and a fabulous bikini. And I go to the beach every day, and I don't care what I look like, because I'm walking, and I'm walking and walking and walking and walking. Unfortunately, I was introduced to the work of Dr. Wayne Dyer and his work on body, mind, spirit, body, mind, energy work. And that's when I started to learn about universal laws and energy principles, which we all live in and we're all a part of. We participate in these laws, whether we realize it or understand it or not. And my mission is to really work to help educate, have information available for people in easy to understand terms, in easy to understand ways as to how they operate, because I believe that when people understand the basics of how they operate, they make much better decisions for themselves. And when the universal laws and energy principles that we are a part of are not brought into consideration, I believe that people are at a disadvantage. I certainly recognize that I was at a huge disadvantage where I was. And oh my goodness. And what's fascinating is how we're imprinted basically when we're growing up. That affects our nervous system, that affects our beliefs. All of these things come into play as we move through our life, because the universal energy is always moving in an upward spiral. We're always going into the unknown. We're always going into different situations and learning more as we go. And something that we think we may have addressed earlier on may come back around as we get into another situation that we had not possibly anticipated. So I think that it's just it's such a beautiful study. And it allows me to, oh my gosh, I've worked with thousands of people over the years between the nursing and the coaching and, just living life. And I think people are way more fabulous than many people give themselves credit for. And I want all of them to have the information that they can have.
I adore that. And I could just listen to you. Like, I don't even have to say a word. We could just allow you to just explore the conversation all by yourself. I will pepper in some thoughts and some questions myself. I want to welcome a few people who've joined us. We have, of course, Miss Rosie. She's in the audience here, and I'm going to highlight her in a second. Thank you so much, Miss Rosie, for helping me out in the beginning. I also want to welcome the one and only Chris Monastery. He has such a heart. He's retired, but he has such a heart to help save teen lives. Distracted driving is almost everywhere. We can all be out and about, and he says saving teen lives, but you know what? I would say he's saving all of our lives, because I know I've been guilty of distracted driving, but since he's brought this to my awareness, I'm much more aware of it. And they have laws now in California. You can't even touch your phone, which I think is really wonderful. So thank you so much, Chris, for the work that you do. And of course, Miss Rosie, she says, hello, beautiful souls. And she is a beautiful soul herself. If I could show her comment here, maybe I can. There we go. And she is Rosie Reckons. She's got poetry. She's just a beautiful soul and has so much to give. I'm excited as she explores her gifts here on LinkedIn, because she is extremely gifted and will probably have a lot of comments and contributions in this conversation. And I want to welcome my friend from across the pond, the one and only Miss Coral. Oh, she went away. We'll bring you back here. There we go. We can hear you. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening, but Coral from across the pond is here. She is a mentor for Christian leaders, coaches who want to explore and really learn how to hear the voice of God. Whether you're a Christian or not, she can definitely help you to find that inner voice, right? We all have that inner voice that sometimes we have to tune that voice in to hear it even louder and clearer. And my good friend Meryl is here. Thank you so much, Meryl, for being here. We appreciate all of you. Greetings from New Jersey. And I'm here in beautiful downtown Monterey, Appreciate all of you. If you're in the Monterey area, come and say hello to me. So let's talk about the energetics of wealth. You say that it's the internal conditions that impact our relationship with wealth. I've heard you say that a few times. You put it in the intro and part of the descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the energetics of wealth? What do we kind of pre-frame this for us?
Well, much of it comes down to our identity, what we consider our capacity, because working with money itself, I believe, is a neutral energy, but we give it meaning by how we have interacted with it in the past, right? And how it has been displayed to us, how our families worked with it, whether they had wealth or they did not. I don't think there's a household on the planet that has not had conversations about money, or certainly attitudes about money, even if, the conversations weren't verbal. There's very much a connection to money because it's a requirement for all of us. And I think that is interesting too, in regard to how much significance people give to the money that they have, or wish they had more of, or take for granted that they do have. I think it's very much about our identity, our nervous system familiarity, our coherence, our capacity for receiving. The law of receiving always starts with giving. And so we have to be able to give and to receive. And what's fascinating too is getting back to the nervous system. The nervous system always wants to be able to predict. And as we're going into unknown situations all of the time, we cannot always predict everything that's going to happen. And so our nervous system really wants us to be safe. And so anything that's unknown, like the example of people that win the lottery and they quite often lose their money after a period of years. And the other thing that I started looking at too was how our own behaviors affect our relationship with money. And so I did a little research, because in my own experience of being in the healthcare arena and having been an overgiver for years, I recognize that in myself. And so I did a little research. And so let me get to my note here, because I asked, do certain professions carry higher debt? And what came back was yes, especially in healthcare, law, and graduate level professions. And what's interesting is healthcare came up at the top of the list. And when you think about the training, and nurses are very highly skilled, they're also working in a very stressful environment most of the time. And what's fascinating with the overgiving, they have gone into that profession for a reason. And 75% of nurses come out of nursing school with student debt. And what's interesting about that is the statistics now also indicate that about 30% of new nurses that come out of nursing school quit after within the first year, because it is so stressful. And there's a correlation between not only the debt, but the chronic stress. And so that's an interesting correlation that is possibly, open for another day. But I do think that is important for people to understand, because people use money as a way to help move themselves forward into a profession or a business or whatever it is they want to accomplish. And I think because of that, once they get to that point, that's when the realization kind of comes to fruition and affects the nervous system, because they don't have the capacity to understand about holding the debt at that level. Does that make sense?
Well, I'll tell you what resonates with me, and we're going to unpack this. This is a great vein that you're in right now. Is that when I have people who are in the nursing industry who come to me, I'm going to tell you what the average debt is. I don't know if you saw the numbers. I'm going to tell you what the numbers that come to me: $300,000 to $500,000 in debt. Let me say that again: 300 to 500, almost $500,000 in debt that they come to me, and they're usually not 21. Typically, they're 50, 60 years old, considering retiring, wanting to figure out what retirement would look like. Can they even retire? They've been in nursing for years. They're feeling burnt out. They've got this huge burden. And so that is absolutely on point. And you said this thing, is there a correlation to that debt and the overgiver? What would you say to that?
Well, I know in my own experience, I've spent well over $300,000 on my education, right? As I've been going through the years, because always, and I think it comes down to not only a chronic stress situation. Overgivers really come from a place of lack for the most part, because it's a sense of unworthiness, not quite being quite enough. Right. And I found that in my own situation, when I was always chasing another degree or chasing another certification, or, I just need that one more thing to make me feel that I am articulate enough. Right. And I always knew enough, and I was always very capable of teaching at that level. And fortunately, I appreciate my sense of humor with myself at this point, right? And having that love for myself and that self-compassion, because I think that there is a bit of awareness that's required. And what's fascinating is when people don't understand about the connection to the nervous system, no amount of awareness is going to help you make a change, because it's very much the nervous system that's involved, and what's been imprinted in your nervous system, and how to work with your nervous system to help yourself to feel safe moving forward, and to be able to set the boundaries, to have the self-respect, to have the self-love is what it basically comes down to, the self-acceptance, because we are certainly, and I think that brings us back to the shadow work, that we do have things that we are not very proud of sometimes, but everybody's got that 360 degree, sphere that they live in, and not all. And those emotions are so fascinating, because people typically growing up have been said, oh, well, you can't get angry, you get, and you get the belt if you cry, or all of these things, and they get squashed down. And then it's what Carl Jung would call the persona, is what helps us move through an acceptable social situation. And I think that happens very much in professions that are services in regard to like healthcare and law, and because not all, but many of these people are overgivers. And that comes back to very much about how we grew up and how we've adapted, right? And I think adaptability is one of the greatest skills that you can develop. However, there's a fine line there as to, are you adapting and incorporating the whole of you moving forward, or are you adapting and still squashing things down? Because if you're adapting and thinking that you're adapting and still squashing those emotions down, and that behavior that thing that you were afraid to say, you wouldn't want to say that, all of these things, it plays such a part in being able to receive. And also, I believe that being able to receive money, to receive that wealth, to feel that you can have a life that is not so stressful, so exhausting, all of these things, that you don't have to sacrifice yourself to to have a life, right? I think all of these things come into play, and I think that it's just imperative to really be thinking about this, because it's very much about establishing the identity that you want to be. And that takes time.
Mm-hmm. And we're always at another level, right, of our healing ourselves. I want to highlight this comment, and I want to welcome a few people, but I definitely want to dive into that because you dropped a ton of golden nuggets here. I want to welcome Yama. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. One of my new friends. Thank you for joining us. And we have the queen herself in the house, our Queen Leslie Flowers. Thank you for joining us. Wonderful to see you. I know she's going to have some great comments here. She's always dropping golden nuggets in the comments too. And then we have the one and only Miss Christy D. Williams. She is our professional customer service professional. She's our LinkedIn cheerleader. If you haven't seen some of the posts she's been posting lately, she's been doing some real deep dives herself. Christy, we want to hear more from you. We love what you're doing. We love how you show up. Great comment here by my good friend Christina Sergato. She says that self-care in our industry is so important. And I think, here we go. Yeah, we definitely need that self-care, positive actions, and intentional self-care. Sometimes people say, oh, self-care, well, just go ahead and, take a walk and prep and get that walk in, or, take a bath and like prep and do that thing. But it's like really giving yourself that gift of that self-care and really putting everything else aside takes intention. For me, it does anyway, right? It definitely does. Yeah. I really want to ask this because a lot of people come to me who are very, very generous. They're big givers, but almost to their detriment, where they've got extreme debt. They've got, just financial crisis, let's say, that they're dealing with themselves. And so how do we know if we're an overgiver? How would we define that?
I think it's important to evaluate how much you're giving and how much you're allowing yourself to receive. And what steps are you taking to set yourself up to receive, right? Because I think that almost everybody intellectually, want expansion. They want the financial stability. They want greater visibility. They want opportunity. They want whatever success means to them. And what's interesting is the internal systems might still be organized around survival, uncertainty, being afraid, overworking. People often overgive to prove themselves for whatever. And what's interesting is that I believe that the chronic stress and living in the stress hormones all of the time doesn't allow people to often evaluate themselves, I would say, accurately, because when you're living in stress all of the time, your perception is actually a little bit skewed. You're not, we're just not meant to run on stress hormones for any great length of time. And when we're running on cortisol all the time, and then the body starts to break down because the body just can't function that way after a period of time, that skews people's perceptions. So I think that so much of that, it's all interdependent because of the way that we do operate. Everything that we think, everything that we feel, everything that we do influences the chemical cocktail reactions in the body that dictate our health. And when we're running on the stress hormones, we're not thinking as we would as if we were in a more calm or peaceful state more of the time.
Yeah, so many good nuggets in there. I want to welcome Meryl and highlight this comment. Yes, I love Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of people in my life that are very generous, and they're always giving me gifts, thoughtful things. But then when I go to reciprocate, they always push back. And so what I said to them finally, this one specific person that's so generous, I mean, he's wonderful. I'm very grateful to have him for sure. And I never want to reject his gifts because they're always so thoughtful. But I said to him this way, listen, if you're not receiving the gifts that I give back to you, you're not completing the circle, and you're robbing me of the opportunity to feel good. Just like you feel so good when you give me this gift and you see I open it and I love it, I'm wondering, it's so exciting. You're kind of robbing that from me. But I don't know, am I off, Catherine? Would you help me with that? That's kind of how I explained it to him. He still doesn't like to receive gifts, but I don't know. How would you help me with that?
Well, no, I think that you've got a very strong basis for that, because the law of giving is also tied to the law of receiving. They're not separate because it's a cycle. It is absolutely a cycle. And so you can say, all right, what's up with your not wanting to be receiving, right? You can't determine that for him, what his thought process is. That's up to him. Though I think I'm glad that you brought up that he's not allowing you to feel good about being able to give to him, right?
Absolutely. Great comment here by Christina. She says, this is a shower of positivity. I'm glad you're feeling the shower of positivity, because it really, really is. I mean, Catherine, I just love the way you articulate these very deep concepts, because these are really deep concepts. What would you say to someone?
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second there, because what's fascinating about all of the work that I do is that it's not just from reading books, it's from experience, right? I have been through many, many different iterations of myself. I have been through it's fascinating because it's been many transformations. And as I study, and then I'll get a realization, it's just like, oh, that's what that is, right? So when you can embody it, when you can feel it, that makes a big difference.
Feeling is the secret.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I've had times in my life where I've had housing insecurity. I've had food insecurity. I didn't have money for books at school, all of these things. And so I understand it. And what's fascinating also is that when you can work from experience, it's much easier to articulate it. It's also a beautiful thing to be able to work with people without having judgment of them.
Ooh, yeah. Just going to sit with that. I love that. Whenever I'm working with my clients, I really work intentionally, like leave my stuff at the door. Like in karate, we both train martial arts. Leave that at the door and really focus on the family, the client that I'm working with, and what do they want, which is whatever that is. Some people want to give a lot of money. Some people want to accumulate a lot of money. Some people have all these different things that they want to do. And I have to really put my own thoughts about that and really help them to achieve whatever it is that's important to them. And that is not easy to do, because sometimes I want to say, oh gosh, what if we tweak this a little bit or something? But so it can really be challenging to really put my stuff at the door. And that's one of the things I love, is that it's constantly a challenge for me, right? I'm always in that. And I love that you said different iterations of yourself. Same here.
Mm-hmm.
upgrading, changing, something I thought was a hill to die on. I'm like, what was I thinking? Who was that person? And giving ourselves the grace to upgrade our thinking, because we're always in this evolution, or we're no longer here. We're going somewhere else, and that's a whole different conversation.
Well, what's fascinating is getting back to the nervous system. It often overrides a conscious intention, because the nervous system wants you to feel safe. And so if your conscious intention is to make a change, and the nervous system is going, I don't know. And so that's when we get into the procrastination and the self-sabotage and all of these things that we don't maybe consciously understand that we're doing to ourselves. And the other thing that's interesting to know too is that if you change your thoughts, I've heard the phrase, change your thoughts, change your life. And absolutely, because the thoughts are key in how we make changes. However, I think it's important to also understand that the thoughts don't necessarily just originate from a thought. The thought is instigated by something in the nervous system. And so it takes concentration, it takes repetition to build those new neural pathways. And what's fascinating when people find themselves in the same situation over and over, it's not that person is low IQ or incapable or lazy or weak or any of those things. It's that they have been in situations that has guided their nervous system to act the way it does. And that leads me to mention the work of Gay Hendricks. And, in his book, The Big Leap, he talks about, the upper limit problem, and it's like a thermostat, right? And so you get only so far, and that's where your nervous system is really comfortable. And so if your income, say, for instance, is just to make the math easy, let's say it's $50,000. And the next year you make $100,000, and the nervous system is going, whoa, what are you going to do with that, right? And so I don't know if we want to do that again, because now we have more responsibility. We have to make new decisions. What's the next step? And then it comes into, then people have often, I think, a sense of urgency and wanting to do a good job with it, and then possibly getting into an overspending. And so it's different for different people.
Yeah, a lot of different ways we can go there, but I want to stay on the vein that you alluded to, which is the self-sabotage. We're going to take a dive into that. I want to welcome some people, and I want to make a few comments here too. So Miss Coral from across the pond, that is Miss Rosie. I call her my Gita girl, Sharon Rosie Winfield. She's the one that does all the poetry. And I want to give a reminder here. If you're showing up, this is Wealthy Wednesday. You are an entrepreneur. You're a business owner. You, in some form or fashion, or want to be an entrepreneur. This is your opportunity to not only show up and learn, but also to network with the people in the comments. Share what you do. If you've got something coming up, you've got a new book, you've got a new show that you're doing, go ahead and share that. I welcome you to do that, because we are entrepreneurs, and you got to rah-rah yourself sometimes. Go ahead and rah-rah yourself. Tell us what you do. Someone is looking for you. Let's talk about the self-sabotage. Yes.
Yeah, before we get into that, I heard Les Brown talking, oh my gosh, quite a few years ago, and it's always stuck with me. And one of the things that he said is, you've got to sell yourself on yourself every day. Right?
Oh, we love Les Brown. Boy, powerful speaker. He was probably one of the first speakers that I ever really studied. So yeah, let's talk about this self-sabotage. And I love the way you described it about the nervous system, right? That it's in our nervous system. My mentor talks about it as a thermostat. He said, if your thermostat is set at 72 degrees, your wealth is set at 72,000 a year, and somehow you earn 85,000, you're going to cool it down unless you increase your identity. And what he's taught me is increasing your identity is keeping the commitments and the promises you make to yourself. If you said you're going to get up early, you got to get up early. If you say you're going to get in shape, go to the gym, you got to do those things. So what would you share? Do you agree with that? And what would you share in addition to that?
Oh, that's absolutely Gay Hendricks' work, right? Absolutely. Yep, the thermostat. And because what happens is, that sets the set point. And it does. It's getting back to that commitment. And as you mentioned, keeping your word to yourself, to keep yourself moving in the direction that you envision yourself to be. What's interesting also about that identity is it's not just having a visualization of the identity. It's being that identity. Being the one that keeps your word, being the one that gets up early and goes to the gym, being the one that catches yourself when you find yourself procrastinating, to make those changes for yourself. And what's so interesting too is that I know in my own experience, for quite a long time, I was just a workaholic, right? And there wasn't anything I couldn't do. You can only do that for so long, and it's actually self-destructive. And so that's not self-respect. Determining what your level of self-respect is for yourself makes a big difference here.
Yeah, that's good. That's a gold bar. Having that self-respect for yourself means that you're going to take care of yourself. I want to welcome a few more people who've joined us. We have the one and only Mr. Felipe Cofino. He is our HR powerhouse. He's also the author of many different books. You've got to see his new books. And he really inspired me to transition the story that I created with my precious grandson into sort of a book. So if you haven't seen Magic Maverick and the Treasure Map, please check it out. I'm going to put it in the comments here. So let's talk about that self-sabotage then. What is happening when people are, I call it putting the gas in the brake. They're working hard. They've got the website. They're showing up. They're doing things. They're hosting stuff. But then at the same time, they're undermining what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't return the phone call to the person who wants their business by something. They forget the appointment, right? They've got this big appointment and then they forget the appointment or they show up late. What would you say to someone that's kind of having that tug of war?
I love to introduce people to their own curious observer. In some arenas, you will, read or hear of self-evaluation being, witnessing yourself. And I started working with my own curious observer quite a long time ago because I had, learned about witnessing and the objective, outside eye. But I found myself being very judgmental with myself. And after a period of time, I was just like, well, this is not helping me at all. All it's doing is making me feel worse. So that's giving me more reason to, be a little more discouraged. And I'm like, well, this is crazy. But I understood the value of the outside eye. So I started using my curious observer, because you get so much more information through curiosity. And I like to have fun. And I think that there's a little bit of mischief that is involved with curiosity. And so instead of berating myself for not having done X, Y, Z, it's like, well, what were you thinking that caused you to do that? Or what did you do that caused you to say that? Or, just finding the information. And then that gives you information that you can use to move forward with. And getting back to your question, evaluating what the capacity is. Each one of us has our own capacity for giving, our own capacity for receiving, our own capacity for exercise, our own capacity for whatever it is. And being able to evaluate that candidly makes a big difference, because if we don't have the capacity to help raise ourselves to receive what's above that old perceived thermostat level, then we're just going to keep dropping back down to that.
This is a great comment by Christina. Stress is like having a hole in your pocket, and knowing it and putting your cash there. Like, you know, there's a hole there, but you still keep putting the money there. I thought that was a great comment. So
I like that. That's good.
how do we embed, or maybe that's the wrong term, but how do we upgrade our nervous system so for more generosity or more wealth or abundance? And by the way, I've been doing something that I heard you talk about with our Queen Leslie Flowers. You said write a word down for the day. I've been doing that. I heard you say that maybe a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. Okay. So it's wonderful because I've got my whiteboard here that I do all my mastermind with myself, and I've got my desk here, and so I write that word down. And what that really does, it's been working so incredible. I've only been doing it a couple of weeks, but what it does is it helps me at those moments where I'm getting the drift, right? I'm sitting there at my desk, or something's going awry, or just got a phone call. I'm like, I see the word. Oh, okay. My word today is impact, and I wanted this conversation to have a great impact for everyone. And I know that you're getting a lot of golden nuggets. So if you're getting a golden nugget, let us know. Put what your golden nugget is in the chat. So let's talk about how can we rewire or upgrade the things that we have in our nervous system. Maybe we're coming from or we're coming from poverty mindset. What things can we do to get that into our nervous system, to upgrade into our nervous system? Because you say that it's really embedded in our nervous system.
It's beautiful to be able to be as present as possible, as often as possible, because that's where the power is. That's where a person can recognize, okay, that wasn't really valuable for me to be thinking that. I was projecting, or I was making an assumption that maybe wasn't even true. Okay, so what's true for me this very minute? I can take a deep breath. I can calm my nervous system. I can say I'm safe. And my step right now, my thought for today, my action step for today is making an impact. So how am I going to be doing that? And so it's repetition, it's reining ourselves in from the wild projections. And I can, I mean, it goes back to Confucius. When you think, I can, or I can't.
And I would add to that, what it's done for me is because I've got that in my awareness. Now, when things happen, I'm thinking, okay, how can I make an impact with that? What's the impact it's having on me? I mean, it's really, like you're saying, being that curious person of myself, right? How am I implementing that word of the day? It's been a fun exercise. I'm really excited to see what this does over 100 days. I like to think of things in 100 days. We have a question from Felipe Cofino. What would you, let's see, can you share the difference between sympathy and empathy and some of the pitfalls to look out for? Can you speak to this?
Yep, this was a beautiful discussion the other day on Leslie Flowers' show, and right, do you remember that?
Yeah, really great.
Mm-hmm. And so, the sympathy is where you put yourself right in that other person's position, that you almost get right in the sandbox with them. Right. And it's what I often refer to as trauma bonding. Ooh. And right. And it's like, okay. If, as an example, Leah, you fell and you broke your ankle and now you can't do anything. And so I'm right in that sandbox with you, and I don't necessarily feel the broken ankle, but now I'm taking over everything to do what I can do because I feel so badly for you that I'm to my own detriment. I'm giving up everything that I'm doing because I'm going to take over what I can do for you. Right.
You might even break your own ankle just so that you could be there with me in the sandbox.
Right. And so, but if I'm empathetic, it's just like, oh my gosh, that's a nasty situation. And I could go as far as helping make arrangements for someone else to come in and help you, but still respecting my responsibilities to myself and being able to, certainly, I do feel badly for you. But I'm not going to jeopardize my own progress. Unless, of course, in a different situation, it's going to be different if it's an absolute emergency, right? And right, and you need CPR. I'm certified. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do that for you, right? So, but in a lot of these situations, the sympathy, I think, often goes hand in hand with being an overgiver. Now that I'm thinking about it, right? Does that make sense?
Again.
Yeah.
The sympathy goes hand in hand with being an overgiver. How is that connected?
Because if I'm overgiving, I'm still not respecting what I'm responsible for myself.
Oh, why wouldn't we? So this is really deep. Why wouldn't we want to be responsible for ourselves?
When you go back to early upbringing, if you were treated abusively, if your voice was not honored, if you had any reason to think that your value was less than, then of course you're going to be doing things to help keep yourself safe. You're going to, be doing things that are wanting to please someone else in hopes of being accepted, of being valued. And that can play out through a person's whole life if that isn't recognized, accepted, and say, oh my gosh, I have such empathy for you, that you spent all of those years doing that. However, I have the opportunity to make changes because I know that I can rewire myself, that I can make changes through creating new neural pathways. When you look at the research in regard to the lifespan of an emotion, it's typically 90 seconds or less, and often only up to about 2 minutes. And so why we keep it going is the story that we attach to it. And the research also shows often that only about 50% of what we recall as being in our memory is actually true.
Oh, I studied that. I learned that probably a year or so, maybe a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And when I learned that, I thought, you know what? That means I could totally flip the script. I think that so many times we're wallowing, beating ourselves up for memories that probably we're remembering them incorrectly, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like the rumor mill, or that game that we used to play as kids, the telephone game, and you'd whisper something to the person next to you, and by the time it got around the whole circle, it was something totally different.
Exactly.
And when you think about witnesses at a crime scene or an accident or something, everybody is looking at it from a different angle, and they have a different interpretation. They have a different perception of it.
Whenever I saw this meme and it showed like a beautiful apple on one side, but then when you turned it around, it was rotten and eaten. And I was like, wow, that is so true. And that's to your point. So Miss Christie has this question, Miss Christie D. Williams. How can we lower our cortisol levels?
Mm-hmm. That's the easiest and fastest entry, I believe, to get to a state of calm or calmer, a calmer state, is through the breath. To take in that deep breath, engage your vagus nerve, because that engages the calming side of your nervous system. And so I think it's going to be important to, I mean, I encourage people to practice breath work several times a day. Whatever type of breathing you subscribe to will work. I always teach the sunshine quotient breathing because I love the sunshine quotient breathing. We're electromagnetic, and let's augment what we are. Let's be even a little brighter, and it actually raises your vibration when you think about that. And but if you can understand about the vagus nerve, because it's connected to just about every organ in your body, and when you do breath work effectively, you can lower your blood pressure, you lower your heart rate, you lower the production of the cortisol. And the other thing that you can do to lower your cortisol levels is to do some lymphatic drainage, because that will help to remove the cortisol that builds up in the body. And that quite often ends up as like a fat pad on the abdomen. And that's typically like a cortisol pad, actually, is what causes that to become the way it is.
I love that you talked about lymphatic drainage. I think that is really powerful, and that we can implement any type of breath work that resonates with us. Here's another phenomenal question. Barb asks, could you say more about what might be going on to prevent us from being able to be open to receiving?
I think that when we perceive ourselves as being either in a position of lack or, experience a mentality of being in a period of lack, that we don't feel that we're quite worthy to receive, to have the what might be referred to as the luxury of receiving, right? To be able to be open to say, yes. How fabulous would it be for me to be able to feel really good about this increased income? And yes, I'm raising my thermostat. And yes, I do want to give some, but instead of giving 20%, I'm going to give 10%, right? Because I'm going to be more respectful of my needs, put a little bit more in my emergency fund or whatever it is that somebody is working on, right? And I think that it is important to, so much of what we think and do and feel, and in many ways how we operate, comes down to how we feel about ourselves. Are we going to, what's fascinating, getting back to the self-care part, society's definition of self-care is not real self-care, right? And so there are also a lot of other societal expectations that have developed through working in corporations, and expectations. Some are external, some come to be internal, but they're not actually conducive to healthy living. And my mom always said, what you tolerate is what you teach. And we teach people how to treat us, and we treat ourselves how to treat ourselves. And so I think a daily evaluation is so helpful.
Yes.
And not to be judgmental, but at the end of the day, say, okay, what worked today? What didn't work so well today? And what am I going to program my RAS to be thinking about, to be looking for through the night? And so I can wake up in the morning and say, okay, now I'm looking for an opportunity for myself. instead of maybe berating myself. And that
Yeah.
will help to improve the feeling of self-worth, self-value, self-respect. And I think that I don't think anybody's exempt from this work. Some people choose to do it. Not everybody does choose to do it, but it makes such a difference when we do the work, because we learn so much about ourselves, and then life does become more of that adventure. And we feel good about being able to receive the funding to be able to have the adventure, right?
Absolutely. That's why when people say things like, I don't want to be wealthy, I just want to be comfortable, I say, stop it. Okay. I say, stop it. You're here to be a blessing to somebody. If you got your things taken care of, there's somebody tied to your little red wagon who needs you to be that person for them. In my family, I'm the one. Since I've been here, I've got 3 phone calls from the kids in the household. They've all got these little fires going on. But listen, I'm so blessed and honored that they call me, right, to help them out. So, definitely. I mean, it's hysterical. This is just an amazing conversation. Yes, Felipe, please put what you do. People are looking for you. This is absolutely my show. And on my show, I make the rules and I say, you're welcome to network. You're welcome to share what you do. Thank you so much for the love on Magic Maverick and the Treasure Map. This has been a phenomenal conversation and truly just the beginning. You really do teach us on a high level. You've got a lot of new fans and friends. Miss Catherine, where can people reach you? How do they connect with you and continue the conversation and continue to learn and grow?
I'd be happy to have you, connect with me on LinkedIn. If we're not connected, send me a message. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. You're also on YouTube. What is your YouTube channel?
It's Catherine Chadwick.
Really simple. Oh, wow. You are just the easiest, breeziest to find out. I want to make sure there are no other questions in there. I appreciate you so much. This has been so wonderful, which I knew it would. And I appreciate your patience. We tried to do this a couple of times, but you know what? Everything happens at the right time. I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. And if you've got some value for Miss Catherine, please put some comments in the comments and let her know. Send her some love. We appreciate you so much. And we're going to go ahead and put you backstage. I don't know. Our queen says there's mimosas down there. I'm not really sure. Alcoholic, non-alcoholic, but there's some treats and gifts for you there. Absolutely. This has been a lot of fun, a great deep dive. Listen, I always come here because I believe the speaker learns the most. I'm not just coming here to tell you and teach you things. I'm also here with you, right? I'm also in the process of learning. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for the comments. I appreciate all of you who showed up, Team Live and Team Replay. I absolutely adore you. So my question to you is this. With all of this, how are you going to implement this? What is the one golden nugget that you picked up today that you're going to be able to implement and truly flip the script and get to that next level? I truly believe that every single one of us, to a person, you are here because you're the one in your family. You're the one in your family that's supposed to create that family dynasty and change your family's last name forever. Maybe that means that you're the one in your family, the first one in your family to be out of debt. Maybe it means you're the first one in your family to buy a home. Maybe it means you're the first one in your family to have these conversations. I don't know what that means to you, but I know you are the one. I appreciate you. I adore you. Thank you so much. We're here every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So thank you, everybody. Remember, this is 2026. It's your year to get in the mix. Come out of the shadows, get in the comments with us, have some fun, just like Coach Carrie. I saw you in the comments. Yes, she's always in the comments. She's everywhere. Appreciate you, Coach Carrie. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Wealthy Wednesday.
High-achieving entrepreneurs and business owners, this is for you. There's a powerful wealth strategy most business owners were never told about. Because traditional retirement plans were designed for entrepreneurs, that's where the Solo 401k comes in. The Solo 401k was built specifically for self-employed business owners, and here's why it matters. As both the employee and the employer, you can often contribute significantly more than a traditional IRA. That means accelerating your wealth, not waiting decades to access it. You may also have the ability to borrow from your Solo 401k. accessing your own capital without banks, without begging, without delays. And unlike most retirement accounts, you're not limited to Wall Street. A solo 401k can allow investments in real estate, precious metals, and even Bitcoin. This isn't about chasing a rate of return. It's about control, flexibility, and intentional strategy. If you're an entrepreneur who wants their money working as hard as they do, download my free Solo 401k guide and subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter. Learn more by visiting leahgarcia.io, because this is how you build wealth on purpose. Wealth today, dynasty tomorrow.